Well, thank you for hosting this Signal Mountain Conservative Club, and thank you all for being here. It's always good, even though I know, a lot of you support Michele, and he's, at this point, and I know there's some of my guys out there too. But it's always good to have an opportunity to give people a chance to get to know you. I'm not used to having the 5-minute remarks. I'm used to having a little bit longer than that. And I didn't think anything of it, and then I thought, that kind of puts me at a disadvantage. I've got a little longer life history than Michele, which is a polite way to say it. I'm just a little bit older than her, so I'll speed it up a little bit. First, deep roots in the community. I want to talk about that. I was born and raised here. My parents were born in tiny Ringgold, Georgia, which most of you probably know. That's just across the line there. And despite some humble beginnings, my dad became a physician. So we gained a little bit of prosperity from that, but unfortunately he died at a young age when I was 13. And I'll talk about how that changed our trajectory in a little bit. My 86-year-old mom is in here somewhere. I appreciate her. Ringgold is well represented. I was born in Memorial Hospital. My wife Tina was born in Erlanger. Both born and raised here. Growing up, I first lived in Chattanooga, went to Macaulay School. As I said earlier, my dad died when I was 13, and that changed our financial situation. So we moved to Red Bank to a more affordable house. And technically, that was my home for a long time. And I say technically because I had a 12-year stint in the Army, and I had college, and I had law school. So as we say in the military, Red Bank was my home of record, but I was living in places like Germany and the Republic of Panama and Maryland. I was away a lot for school, but Tina and I moved back 28 years ago. We've lived on Signal Mountain for 20 years now, and I know a lot of people think of Signal, Walden, Fairmount. We've lived on Signal, but in the town of Signal Mountain for 28 years. Raised our children here. My son probably doesn't remember living anywhere other than here. My daughter's got a few memories of Knoxville. But ironically, neither of them was born here. My daughter was born in Maryland because I was stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland at the time. And my son was born in Knoxville because I was in law school at the time. Work experience, I mentioned a little bit of it. I guess you can start with, I went away to college after graduating from Macaulay. And I'm trying to find the best way to word this, but let's just say I didn't focus on academics my first 2 years. So after 2 years, and I realized, when I was at Macaulay, my dad died when I was in 7th grade. And when I was in Macaulay, I had some very good male role models. So you probably would know some of the names, Coach Potter, Coach Terry Evans, and those kind of people. When I got down to the University of Georgia, they weren't there. I didn't have a father to jerk a knot in my tail, as we used to say. So I turned to Uncle Sam. Good old Uncle Sam was willing to help me out. I enlisted in the Army, and that was my first job, private in the Army. I was very fortunate that after a couple of years, and I was stationed in Germany, after a couple of years, the Army paid for me to go back to college. Fortunately, I had not blown up my GPA when I left. And that was great, ROTC scholarship, GI Bill, so I was able to support myself while I was there. The other side of that coin, any of you that have any experience with the military, they don't do that for free. So I did another 4 years, but I was an officer now, which was, better pay. And around that time, I met my wife of, 38 years? 38 years? And then my next assignment was in Central America. So now we've got the Iran war, which may not qualify as a war yet. But we've been in war so much the last 20 years. Back then, the kind of wars we had was when I was in Germany, it was a Cold War, and it was West Germany, not Germany. And then when I was in Central America and Panama, it was the drug war. I see some people in here old enough to remember, we've done the drug war before. We were blowing up Venezuelan boats. Hopefully this time it'll work out a little bit better than it did then. Law school, so I'm going to spending 12 years in the Army, loved every minute of it. Well, not every minute of it, okay, but really enjoyed it. And by the time we got to Maryland, my daughter was born about the time that the first George Bush, the Cold War was over, and he was reducing the forces by quite a bit. So they offered some sort of mini retirement plans, and I decided it was time to get out. I told Tina that the day they were looking for somebody to go to Korea, is that 5 minutes?
Sure is.
Law school, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Attorney General's office ends up. So sorry I didn't get through that. When we get to the question and answer, if there's any part of that you'd like to get more details on, just ask me a question. Be glad to do it. Thank you.
Well, y'all know me, so I will just get right to the point. When I ran for the seat, I did not run to go to Nashville to become part of a system, but to be effective in it. I did not run in Nashville to be told how to vote by leadership, by lobbyists, or by political pressure. I ran because I believe District 27 deserves a representative who is willing to tell the truth, who will do the homework, who will stand on principle, and who will vote the way I told you I would vote. And that is exactly what I have done. Politicians have a reputation for saying one thing when they're back at home, but doing something totally different after they're elected. I told you I would be conservative. I told you that I would protect taxpayers and defend parents, and that I would push back against government overreach. And I told you that I would not simply go along to get along. There are other ways to get along and get things done. And when that pressure came, I kept my word. Because for me, conservatism is not just a campaign slogan. It is not something that I just put on mailers, and it is not something that we earn just because we have an R by our name. Conservatism means limited government. It means fiscal responsibility. It means parents raise their children and not the government. It means that we do not grow government just because our side is okay with doing it. And it means that we ask hard questions about accountability, about constitutionality, and about long-term consequences. When Nashville pressure says just vote yes, a conservative legislator should be able to ask the question, is this good for my district, and is this good for Tennessee? That is how I have approached this job. I read the bills, I did the homework, I asked the questions, and I cast the vote that best reflects what the issue was that was in front of me. Sometimes that meant voting yes, and sometimes that meant voting no. And sometimes, as you know most recently, that means present not voting. I do that when the bill has some serious concerns, or there's conflicting provisions, or there are unresolved questions. That is not avoiding a vote. That is recording my presence, and that is taking a position and being honest about where I stand. A principled vote is not always an easy vote. And one example of this is why I voted against the voucher bill. Some people wanted that vote to be easy, and I wish it was, because I believe that parents do deserve more choices. I believe that you should have more control over your child's education, and I believe our schools need reform. However, I also believe that creating a massive government entitlement program, giving public dollars to private institutions, and committing taxpayers to a long-term financial obligation without enough accountability is not automatically conservative just because a Republican is carrying that bill. That is not something to rubber stamp, and I was not sent to Nashville to rubber stamp anything. I was sent there to ask questions. Is it fiscally responsible? Does it expand government? Does it create a new dependency on state dollars? And is it constitutional? If the answer isn't right, then I am not going to call it conservative just because it's politically convenient. Our party needs a revival. We need to remember who we are. Republicans are just as bad as Democrats right now, giving and asking for entitlements. The party should be a party of limited government, not expanded government. This should be the party of parents, not bureaucrats. This should be a party of rules and order, where the law actually means something, processes are respected, and that a special exemption is not given just because we are the party in power. And this should be the party that questions government power, even when our own side is using it or has the advantage of it. We are not supposed to trust government just because Republicans are in charge. A bad idea does not become conservative just because Republicans sponsor it. Government expansion does not become freedom because Republicans rename it. And fiscal irresponsibility does not become good policy because the governor or leadership wants the program. This is the kind of Republican I have been in Nashville. And I have worked on legislation that reflects real conservative values. I carried a bill to clarify that artificial intelligence does not deserve rights. Those only belong to human beings, not machines. I carried legislation to protect children from petroleum-based dyes in school meal programs because children, when they're being fed through government programs, the parents should have some basic standards. I work to protect parental access to your minor children's medical records because parents cannot care for their children if the government is helping keep those records in the dark. I carried legislation on digital devices because our young children do not need to be in front of screens all day, and us call that education. Staying on principle sounds easy until you have to do it. The record that I have built and the promise I have kept, and that is the work that I want to continue to do. Tonight, I am not asking you to vote for me based on what I might do. I've already proven what I will do. I told you I would be conservative, and I kept my word. I'm Michele Reneau. It is an honor to serve as your state representative, and I'd be honored to earn your vote again.
So if you would, Tom's going to draw the numbers. You're going to tell me if you got it or not, and then try to ask questions that are like, that can be directed at both candidates, because they're both going to have time to answer it. Now, I guess if you directed it at one, the other one could just talk on whatever they wanted to. I don't know. But they're going to get their time, right? But it'd be preferable if both of them could answer it. So we're going to go ahead and start. Draw the first number. 19, baby. Who's got 19? Raise your hand. Go ahead, and we're going to give you 1 whole minute to ask your question. Go.
All right, I got several, but since Brandon's only letting me have one. Something that's probably on the minds of a lot of people in here, and it's normally the federal government's over, but Tennessee plays a part of it too, in part of it. Do you believe all illegal aliens should be deported, including those who have not been convicted of a violent crime? Why or why not?
I don't know. Maybe 2.5 minutes. Just gonna do it by the book here. Since you went first, I'll let you go first, and we'll come to you.
Yes, we are a country of law and order, and just because you have come here illegally, unfortunately, you should not be able to stay just because you have not violated a law. We taxpayers pay money, and unfortunately, a lot of that money has been going to support folks who don't necessarily, they do not have citizenship, and those money should go to taxpayers first. So yeah, even if they have not committed a violent crime, that is not a reason to let someone stay here.
That was quick. Go ahead.
2.5 minutes is a lot. You're right, it's mainly a federal issue, and I think President Trump and his agencies have done a really good job closing the border, although I would like to see the physical border bigger, because I think it has been closed in large part because the way the administration's been conducting this is a huge deterrent to people coming across the border. So I think not as many people, hardly anybody's coming across because they're worried about what would happen, or what if there's a new administration and they don't do that. So that's a concern of mine. Obviously, deportation of anyone that's committed a crime is great. On people that haven't, I think we want to be careful. I think even President Trump has recognized there are certain industries that could be crippled, like, you know, if all of those disappeared at the same time, construction industry, agriculture. So I don't know if President Trump and his administration are working this. I think they are. But if we come up with some sort of, you know, amendment to the visa system so they can legally be here, and I'm sure it would involve paying some money, you know, so they're not just, you know, getting off free. I think that would be worth looking at.
All right. Next number, and if you can, you know, on the questions, like make them state government related. It's all interested to talk about federal government, but they're state reps.
We did pass a lot of laws on immigration in the state legislature,
Yeah.
so it's a relevant question.
Yeah, I said President Trump. Tennessee's done a really good job on that too. And yeah, I'd love to talk about the Iran war, but I'm not gonna be able to do anything about it.
Four.
Hey,
Number-
Brandon, I did have a follow-up that was state related. That was just kind of leading me.
Sorry, now that you do it, and everybody else can have one. Just one more question, a quick one. It's just quick.
Were you a teacher? Were you a teacher in previous life?
Well, I've been around these people for 20 years. I know how they are. So number what?
Four.
Four. Who's four? Go ahead, sir.
What is your position statement on abortion, and please include any exceptions that you would vote in favor of?
You got 54 seconds left. Understood. All right. So maybe we get this down, and this appears to be, let's shorten it to 2 minutes, and maybe not even go that. Let's do it. 2 minutes. We'll just shorten this part down so we can get to more questions. And if they go quicker, we'll shorten it more. You go first.
Abortion. So, just like I said with the federal government, Tennessee's done a lot on the abortion front. I think we have one of, if not the strictest abortion laws in the country. So on the one hand, I wouldn't, if I were elected, I wouldn't do anything to reverse that. But on the same hand, it wouldn't be a high priority for me to try to find a way to make it stricter. I'm not sure we could make it stricter, but just to be honest with you, I think we're where we need to be on that.
Well, I certainly have waved the banner on the pro-life issue. I'm endorsed by the Tennessee Right to Life. And while Tennessee is very conservative and has some of the strongest laws on abortion, more women are aborting babies today than before Roe v. Wade was overturned because of abortion pills. And this is something that we are trying to address in Tennessee and that we need to continue push back on, because 1 in 9 women are having to go to a hospital due to complications because of how these things are being prescribed. They are able to get them over the counter, through online website orders, and they're not being fully informed of what the risks are. And because they are told there is going to be some bleeding for some extended period of time, women are dying because they do not know the truth. So we do need to do more in Tennessee in order to address that issue.
Tom,
17.
17.
Yes, I get to be 17.
Go ahead.
We've heard about what you've done since and what you've done early in your career, but can you take, say, the last 10 years before you have office, or the 10 years before you're now seeking office? What have you done that will set you up to be effective in business?
You mean in office?
Last 10 years, what have you done in your lives that will allow you to be effective in business? or
Michelle,
in government?
you go first this time.
Well, so many of you know my story. I was active in the legislature as a citizen lobbyist on many issues, and I think that gave me a unique advantage to be effective. I actually had the opportunity to work on writing some legislation about 7 years ago and walk through that process with the senator who helped me write that draft legislation. I actually ended up testifying in committee, and I got to learn firsthand what happens behind the scenes, because they allowed me to be in a conference with the chairman, with the various stakeholders that had a say in that legislation and that were concerned as we worked through compromise. So my work, actually, I think folks who are most engaged in legislation and have had the opportunity to really understand it and how the process works has been a tremendous advantage to me. Additionally, I was a realtor for many years before I became a full-time mom, and the most important thing about being a realtor is relationships, and that is the same for any business, but more so in politics. And so I worked really hard my first year for sure, and certainly even more so the next, because coming into very big shoes to fill with my predecessor, who was well respected, building those relationships is important to getting legislation passed. Unfortunately, it's not always the merits of the bill that get it across the finish line. It is the relationships that you build and work through those in order to get good legislation to where you need it to be for it to be passable. So that has been my experience, and I think this last session, the success was shown in being able to pass 7 bills, 7 of 10 bills. You were able to introduce 7 bills each session, and I was able to pass 7 of those this last session.
So I said, I do have a pretty long work history. I think every job I've had, even when I was a 21-year-old private in Germany, has taught me things that would be beneficial as a representative. Even when I was a 21-year-old private, I'm learning discipline, responsibility, work ethic, and I was a signal intelligence analyst, which means, if you think, when I say signal, think of Russians talking on radio. There were people that would intercept that, and then analysts take all the translated communications and try to figure out what's going on. I was in West Germany at the time. Is the Soviet Union practicing to come across the border, or are they really coming across the border? And I think that sort of analysis would be handy as a representative. You take in a lot of different facts, you look at a lot of different courses of action and try to decide which is the best one. That was enlisted. As an officer, I get all that plus a lot of leadership training, and also start learning how to collaborate. And I think that's important at the legislature too. Collaborate with other people to come to the best solution. What was my job after the Army? Went to law school. I think a lot of things you do as a lawyer are beneficial. I mean, we read laws a lot. You know, I know my way around the statute. In private practice, I was a litigator in commercial litigation. You learn valuable skills such as negotiating a reasonable solution to things. Then I was at Blue Cross. I learned a lot. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. I was their general counsel, which is in charge of their legal division. And there, again, you're still learning about the law. You're also learning to negotiate and collaborate, and another big dose of leadership ability. And then my last job, I was a deputy attorney general in the Tennessee Attorney General's office in the Medicaid fraud division. And I'm still learning. I'm still around law. I wasn't in government relations, but I'm close to them. Dealing with laws, again, I was also litigating there, learning how to negotiate and find good solutions. And Medicaid fraud's become a much bigger issue now. I mean, I would love to do some more. If you think the fraud that's happening in Minnesota is not happening in Tennessee, you're wrong. It's not happening on the same scale. But that's something I'd love to be involved in.
5.
5. Who's number 5? That's me. So one big issue to me is it's the biggest fiscal line item with illegal immigration in Tennessee, and that's education. It's like $800 million a year. We're talking about overcrowded classrooms. My own niece had to be pulled out of kindergarten, and the teacher said, "I've got so many kids speaking English as a second language. It's all I can do to catch them up. I'm sorry." And so kids are experiencing this all over. Bo Watson brought a bill that would stop taxpayer-funded illegal immigration at the school board level if they wanted to charge tuition. Would you support stopping taxpayer-funded illegal immigration? Some of our Republicans, even in this room, have voted against that. And even our school board voted against it, even though it's an 85% issue when you poll it in the district, and I personally polled it for $4,000. So it's an 85% issue. Do you support it? Are you against it, and why? You went first last time, so you'll go first this
I'm glad
time.
you can keep up with that.
2 minutes.
So I'm aware that bill, Michele was privy, because she's up there, she's privy to briefings on it and things like that. And that's going to be true with a lot of issues, maybe a lot of issues that we talk about. Yeah, I have a problem. I have a couple of problems with it because it sounds like it hurts children, and I don't like the idea of hurting children, regardless of what their parents did. But I know there's a financial aspect to it as well. I don't know what the proposal was. I think the idea was they would pay tuition. I'd like to know what that would be. But in the current state of the law, it's unconstitutional. That law is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court ruled on it some years ago. And I know you can overturn, like we did with Roe v. Wade, but that gives me pause as well. As the law stands today, that bill is unconstitutional.
I think that was the purpose of the law, was for it to go back to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that could be the strategy. That's probably the strategy, try to get it overturned.
Yeah, well, I did vote in favor of that bill. I think this is an important piece right now. Again, I can't remember the exact numbers, but millions and millions of dollars, whether it's education, it's food stamps, it's an unknown amount of money, and the different services are going to folks who are not lawful. They might have a certificate that Biden gave them, but they didn't come over here the legal way. And that is not fair to taxpayers. We have citizens in District 27, right here on Signal Mountain and in Lookout Valley, all parts, who are struggling with paying their bills, with getting groceries, with paying for housing and utilities. But we have folks who are obtaining those services, whether it's welfare or taking away from our children who you guys have paid with taxpayer dollars, property taxes for a long period of time, and they are taking advantage of getting those benefits, and that's just not right. The intent of that bill was to challenge that decision, Doe versus
Plier.
Doe versus Plier, or Plier versus Doe. And we believe that the amendment that we made was not the same original bill, but we believe that if we'll just have one person challenge it and call it with, asking for that information, then it will still be able to go up to the Supreme Court. We can get that decision and get it finalized.
I mean, if they're illegal, I don't know why you don't deport the whole family. Why would you say, we're not going to deport the parents, but we're going to make sure the children are stupid?
I think most people would be okay with deporting everybody.
Well, I'm with you there. Deport the whole family.
Next question, Tom. Making good time here, guys.
All right, we got 14.
14. Go ahead. 1 minute.
This is on data centers and local resources. Would you support or oppose the construction of a large data center in Hamilton County? What factors would you determine? Your answer, where should it be located if you did?
Okay. So,
Data
Here,
center.
Liz, your turn.
I think it's my turn.
yes.
So I actually carry some legislation on data centers. I do have concerns about them. In Memphis, and actually really other states who have pioneered data centers, there are some very real concerns. They are huge consumptions of energy, the water consumers. There are places in Louisiana where they literally, the residents are turning on the water and it's dripping because the data centers are consuming so much water. As much as this is sort of the next arms race right now in the United States, people are concerned about artificial intelligence and getting ahead in this area. We cannot do it without having some guardrails and some safeguards to protect us. You know, those of us who live and work here, we need to protect residents and businesses. So I know Hamilton County did have, I think I read there were 3 mini data centers they were putting in. My legislation was going to require a analysis by the utility district, the water person, where they would have to submit information about how much water consumption they would take up, and then the water utility would be able to determine if there's enough capacity to allow them. And if not, what they would have to do is create a closed loop system which would reduce that water consumption. There are many other issues now. Actually, I've been paying attention to this data center issue where noise pollution is becoming huge. And I don't remember what state it was in, but the folks that live outside of the data center, they literally cannot sleep at night because the noise and hum is so loud. So these are things we really need to talk about. It cannot be in near a residential area. There's got to be some other factors. I'm actually looking at some legislation on noise pollution regarding data centers and working with a former person in intelligence who actually has some knowledge at a higher level that I think if we can get the legislature to buy in. The biggest obstacle to this is that the chamber does oppose it. Your Chamber of Commerce does not want to inhibit businesses from coming here. And that is going to be a push that data centers bring in economics, it brings in money. But the fact is that they bring in very little money, they provide very little jobs, and that most of them will be obsolete in 3 to 4 years.
Sir?
I don't think we're very far apart on that, because, I don't think we should just flat out prohibit them, but we've got to come to an understanding of all these issues that Michele just mentioned before we allow one to be built here. And I've heard the same thing. They don't really provide a lot of jobs. They can be run by like 20 people. I've heard the argument indirectly, though, they do, because it's, we're going to get to a point where a lot of the people in, the computer type industry are going to have that. But yeah, all those problems, electricity usage, water usage, we would have to figure out how we're going to handle that before allowing it.
Okay. Tom?
Number 1.
Number 1.
Right.
Who's number 1?
That's me. So I want to make a statement about the education of illegal immigrants, and because in our family we've had an exchange student from Argentina, and in order for that student to go to public school, we had to pay almost as much as private school, or even some private schools more than, it was more than that. So why can't that argument be used against illegal immigrants? If an exchange student has to pay and they're coming here legally, why do illegal people get free?
All right. So you go first.
Yeah, I didn't know exchange students had to pay.
Oh yeah, they have to pay a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about exchange students.
I
I don't think there's any Supreme Court opinions on that. I'm not sure.
I don't think we can, I don't think I could surmise why schools would allow it in the first place. I know that if my child, any school they go to, public or private, I have to submit birth certificate and I have to submit all this documentation. There's no reason why everyone else shouldn't do it either. We could solve this problem very easily and not cost taxpayers a lot of money arguing about this for the last 4-6 years that it's really come to the forefront. But it is something that I think that it's come to a hilt, and we're having a real conversation about it. And really, it's up to your school board. I mean, the school board already has the right to do this. It's the state having to do something and insert themselves because the local school boards aren't doing something. And people are obviously complaining and recognizing that it does take up taxpayer dollars, and it's taking away from your children, your grandchildren who speak English. And it's not saying that we can't educate them, but at the amount that we have, it's unfortunately taking away from other folks, and they're really not getting what you pay for.
Tom?
20.
20.
Bingo.
Should government, employers, schools, or healthcare systems be allowed to require vaccines as a condition of employment, attendance, or participation?
You go first. No, you go first.
Well, so if you don't know, I got involved in politics more so than I was prior to being involved at the legislative level in 2020 because of COVID. And the reason why I got involved is because I was not happy with the way that businesses and government were telling people what they had to do. That your body is your body, and you have the right to say what goes inside of it. And so I highly object to the government or business telling you what you have to do as it relates to vaccinations or other medical procedures, or even things that you put on your body. That is your decision. We live life at risk every single day. You can walk out of this room and slip on a banana and die just as easily as you could from the flu, because the chances are that even if you get the vaccine, you still have a chance of being sick. You have the right to decide that, whether it's with your doctor, whether it's a personal preference. It's really none of anybody's business. I had the opportunity in a government operations joint rule review just last month, where there were some bureaucratic rules for a department, the Health Facilities Commission, where they were requiring the government to report on the reason why you wanted to object or decline a vaccination. And I objected to that, brought that up in the discussion, and we killed the rule as a result. I am committed to medical freedom and your right to decide that however it is you wish. You make an informed decision, you talk with your doctors, and you know your family history best and what you should do or what needs to be done on that.
It's a broad question, and I think it's more nuanced than that. I think a lot of us are coming off of COVID and think of that. I had a problem with requirements for people to take the COVID. I mean, I eventually got it, but I didn't like people being forced to do it. And I wasn't forced to do it, now that I think about it. My viewpoint's a little different because I spent 12 years in the military, and you just get the shots. I mean, it's very mandatory. But I wasn't there when there was something like COVID that was experimental, and even if that might be the right term, but it didn't go through the normal approval process. So in general, I would say I don't think employers in government other than the military should be able to order that, but I would reserve the right to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, if this hantavirus just went berserk here, I might look at that differently. If there was a solid
Well, my question is
vaccine.
also for regular vaccinations for schools.
Oh, like measles and all
For
that?
schools.
See, I think that's nuanced too. Like, some of them have such a long track record of not being problematic. I probably wouldn't have a problem with it, but others, I would. But like measles, I don't have a problem with schools making the measles vaccine mandatory. And we can make the illegal immigrant children get it too.
Okay. Tom?
I think that's a 9, not a 6, right?
Whatever you want it to
Let
be.
you call it. No, it's not.
I've got one that looks like it.
That's good, you get it.
So,
You are now 6.
oh,
Go, no, you're taking this one,
Okay.
and then she'll take the next one that's upside down.
very good. My question has to do with property tax. And I don't know if the state can impact the property tax at all, but some of us feel like the way Hamilton County deals and handles property tax, and especially this most recent assessment of property, et cetera. So does the state, can they influence that at all? And if so, how would you go about doing that?
I think it's my turn.
Especially for retired people. Yes.
So, yeah, I think the state could influence, but it'd probably be like they would have to pass a law You know, it's interesting. I've been trying to get a feel for what are everybody's top issues, whether I'm knocking on doors or just having lunch at Odell's in Lookout Valley. And I'm finding it's everyone, and maybe this should have been obvious, but it depends on where you are in your life. And you and I are probably closer, you know, to the same point in life than my son back there. And yeah, I hate the property tax. And part of it is because you feel like, you know, I paid my house off 20 years ago and I got to cut a check every year for $4,000. So the state could do something about it. You know, what exactly would they do? And Michelle might have more insight on this than me, but the problem is we got all these things we have to pay for. You know, roads, which is another concern of a lot of people. Roads, schools, and all of that, and the money has to come from somewhere. And it's been, some of that money's been coming from property tax for a long time, so it's probably gonna be an uphill battle to get relief there. You know, it would be self-serving for me to say, I think when you're over 60, you know, you should not have to pay it or pay half. So that's an issue I'd definitely be interested in, but I'm cognizant that, you know, if we were to, you know, if we were to save taxpayers $50 million on sales tax, we're gonna have to make it up somewhere else. So I'd have to have a suggestion for, quite frankly, what we're gonna tax to get it, or are we gonna get savings somewhere to make up the difference?
Well, quite frankly, I'll best say something unpopular, and it's just that your counties and cities are spending too much money.
Yes.
So the first thing they need to do is cut back on their spending. In the state of Tennessee, there are some laws that govern property tax, and we actually saw several property tax bills this year that wanted to address this. This was one of the top 3 issues of folks as I spoke to folks previous to this last session. The first one was an abolishment. That was certainly just a discussion starter, and actually there were some great discussions, because what would that look like? And that would mean that if we abolish property tax, what we would have to do is raise sales tax approximately 14% was the rough estimate. And so people have to decide, are you willing to stomach a 14% property tax or sales tax if you had no property tax? That was one discussion. The second discussion was that we should not be taxed on unrealized gains. And this is unfortunate this one didn't pass, because if I bought my house at $250,000, but it's worth $500,000 now, I didn't pay that, but I'm paying property taxes on that, and that is unfair too. Where I moved from in South Carolina, your assessment was based on your value that you purchased, because that is an actual real-time, what a buyer and seller are willing to exchange dollars for. That is the value of your property. The property assessor should not be able to decide today or next year that, hey, I think your property's worth, you know, $400,000 today, and we're going to tax it accordingly. There are some rules or laws and in the Constitution that actually prevent some of that assessment, how they do that, for being changed. And so it was a difficult hurdle to climb. The last major property tax bill we had was a cap. And I had the opportunity before the session to meet with Art Laffer. You might remember him from Reagan's economic advisor. He is a phenomenal guy. When he moved to Tennessee a couple decades ago, he really looked at the monetary policy. And he was the one that helped get rid of several taxes that we don't have now, including the hall sales tax. And he said, guys, if we can just cap property taxes, we're not asking you to get rid of it, but we can cap it so that you don't have cities like Red Bank going up 63% and city of Chattanooga going up 25%, but we make them be more make the cities or the counties be more responsible with their monies if they know they can only raise it a certain amount. There's disadvantage of that, because if you say they can only raise it 3% every year, they're going to raise it 3% every year. But we did have some nuanced language about how we could make sure they couldn't raise it no more than a certain amount of time in a certain period of time. But that was a difficult hurdle to climb as well too, because your lobbyists that work for your county commissions and cities really oppose that, and everyone on that committee is a previous retired county commissioner or city something or another, and so that was going to be hard to get out of that committee.
Last question, because we're going to close remarks, because we still got other business to conduct. 15. 15.
What does the Second Amendment mean to you, and what do you support or oppose with Tennessee law?
I don't remember.
You go first this time.
I'm an avid supporter of the Second Amendment. It's not just to protect your home or your person, although that is very important, because God love our police, but they are only minutes away when second matters. It is absolutely imperative that you be able to defend yourself, and you choose and decide how you do that. But additionally, our founding fathers gave us that in our Bill of Rights, because they did that so that we could protect ourselves from a tyrannical government. And that is the most important thing. That is the reason why we don't have foreign invaders come over to the United States. That's why we were able to keep Japan off of our coast, because they know that we are well-armed citizens, and that is very important in maintaining our rights. There was every piece of legislation that remotely infringed on your Second Amendment rights, I voted against, because each of them, although they had good intentions, the way that they were written, they were very poorly written in many cases, would infringe on your rights to carry or to potentially cause you to have your rights taken away. There's so many different factors in the legislation. I also, because I serve on government operations, I have a chance to review the Department of Safety rules, and there were rules that I was able to oppose and get changed. Actually created, because of my objection to the rules, it created a law a caption bill, actually last year, that corrected a provision that was unconstitutional in our statute, which is that 18-year-olds were not able to carry a permit or get a carry permit. In our statute, it only said 21, but because they were breaking federal law, and I pointed that out, I was going to vote the rules down, and I had enough members with me that were willing to stand with me on it, that they were willing to create a bill, and literally out of thin air, to make that right so that their legislation could pass. So I have been a fierce defender of it from the beginning.
I mean, at the risk of stating obvious, Second Amendment means the right to bear arms, and there's 200 years of court cases defining what exactly that means. I told you I spent 12 years in the Army. I've had a concealed carry permit for a long time, but I'm sort of on that issue like where I was with abortion. Tennessee's really strong on the Second Amendment, so I don't, that wouldn't be at the top of my list to do something new in that regard. To the extent any new laws are proposed that could infringe on Second Amendment rights, I would have to look at them on a case-by-case basis. I mean,
Shall not be infringed.
do what?
Shall not be infringed.
Yeah, but everybody's definition of what infringement is different. Like, I don't think everybody should be able to have an M60 machine gun. Some people probably think they should. But this gentleman wants an M6, but he doesn't have it right now. But, so yeah, that's right.
Okay, guys, we're going to take 5 minutes of closing statement, and we'll wrap this thing up. So you went first, so you'll go last. No, you'll go first this time. You'll go last.
I feel like I've made my case. I have done exactly what I said I would do. I think District 27 proved in the last primary that they really do want conservative representation. When I first sought to run in 2022, I was told by someone that you don't know what you're talking about. District 27 is not conservative. They will never have someone more conservative than our current incumbent. And obviously that was not true. And I believe that Republicans, we want to conserve our foundations and our values, and that is why I stepped up, because I felt like it wasn't happening. And I believe that I have honored my commitment to you and the promises that I made. I will continue to do that and continue to fight for conservative principles. I can't even express to you what an honor it is to have been able to serve these first 2 years. There is certainly a lot more work to be done in the legislature, and I think that you will come to see over the next couple years, maybe 2, 4, 6 years, why we need folks who are more principled than ever to be representing the people of Tennessee in the legislature. I feel like you guys know that if you need me or you have a question, I've been open. I have been an open book. I have been more than transparent. I have intentionally done that because my predecessor, I felt like, did not, and there were a lot of questions when it came time to ask those hard questions. I'm an open book as far as what I've done, what I believe, what I have fought for, what my voting record is. There is no doubt in anyone's mind. Several folks have picked up the phone and called me when they had a question about a bill. And certainly I want you to call me before the legislation passes, because there have been many instances where I was able to go to the bill sponsor and fix an issue. And that's one of the powers of building relationships. It's one of the things I feel like, it's one of my biggest strengths, is that while I am a newcomer to the legislature, I feel like I have overcome huge hurdles to build those relationships, which might be a little bit harder for someone who is an outsider to politics. But I feel like I've earned the respect of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. My leader, Leader Lambert, has always told everyone, man, Michele is not afraid to ask the question. She will call me late on Sunday night to ask me, does this bill really do what I think it does? And I want you to know that I am doing that for you every single day when I'm up there, whether it's in committee, whether it's in the conversations with other bill sponsors of legislation that I'm concerned about. I can't work on every bill because I have my own slot of bills that I have plus my committee work. But if you call me with an issue, Brooke knows, I will run down that bill sponsor and do everything I can to make sure it's corrected. DA Womp has also had an issue with some legislation about removing homeless people, and I made sure that bill sponsor knew. He was going to be bullheaded about getting it changed in the piece of legislation, but we were able to get an amendment on it. So I really feel like this is a call to be a public servant for me. As you know, I don't have anything to gain from this. Other than freedom, that is my sole mission. Is I think liberty is the most important thing. The more liberty that we have, whether it's in business, deregulating businesses, or more liberty for us, it actually benefits everything, all the other things we want, like economic prosperity. And so I look forward to the opportunity to continue to do that. I look forward to answering questions. You guys can always call me. I even have folks who, on the other side of the aisle, who reach out to me and ask questions, and I feel like if you ask anybody who had called my office, they will say that I've treated them with respect, no matter who they are. I might still look up which side of the aisle you're on, but I just like to know what angle I'm working. The biggest thing I do is constituent care, because it is important that I serve you in the things that you need from state government. I've had so many opportunities to help people, and that is actually my favorite thing to do. It's not, legislation is one thing, and it's fun to do it, but really the care for constituents and the issues that you have, that you might come across as you're dealing with state government, those are the ways that I want to be able to serve you. And so with that, in April, I ask for your vote on August the 6th, or if you want to vote early, that's great too.
So I didn't know the whole format today, so I don't have a closing statement prepared, but I'll wing it. And so I don't forget, among everything, please vote in the primary. We've got a real problem with Republicans not voting in the primary. So whether you're for me or Michele, please do that. Now for my improvised closing statement. I've learned quickly that as a candidate, a challenger, you have a lot of disadvantages. The incumbents have a lot of built-in advantages. An incumbent gets to talk about what they've been doing in the Capitol during the last year or the last 2 years, and I have to try to convince you that I think I could do a better job. And that boils down to three things that I've talked about to some extent, but I'd love to talk to any of you if you want to individually more. My deep roots in the area. That means more to some people than others. I mean, some of you are probably new to the area and could care less, but I think it does matter to some people that I spent virtually my whole life here. My life and work experience. I got into some of it. I didn't get to cover all of it, but I do think each level that I've been at, I've acquired traits that would be very valuable as a legislator to listen to a bunch of different problems and different potential solutions and come up with the best solution and try to collaborate with other people to get that done. And then lastly, and I didn't get to talk about this a lot, I think one thing that differentiates us is what my priorities would be if I was elected. I think a lot of my opponent's priorities come from her background. A lot of it has to do with food and beverage, health, and that sort of thing. Last year, her signature bill was about, she calls it the chicken pot pie bill, to be able to sell goods that you grew the product and you made the finished product. We've seen, let's get fluoride out of the water, red dye out of food. I'm not saying those things are a bad idea. I know there's merit to some of that, but I don't think the average citizen in District 27 has that real high on their list of priorities. I mean, if I'm elected, my priorities are going to be cost of health care, cost of daycare for working young people, cost of senior care for people my mother's age. No offense, Mom. Infrastructure. I've been amazed at how. Yeah, I should have said. I've been amazed at how many people their top issue is the roads in this area. And I'm not saying I have a solution to that or these other problems, but that's what I would focus on. That's what I would be trying to find a solution to. So I appreciate having an opportunity for you to get to know me. I'll stick around. Well, we probably don't have a lot of time to stick around. But
we got to conduct a little business, and then if y'all want to.
TonyHullender.com if you want to send us some kind of message. And again, thank you for your time.
Brandon,